So members, are we ready? Are we ready? So can we have the candidates being escorted in? Silence, members. Attention members, we have one nominee in the room. So I want to take this opportunity to welcome one Mr. Raymond Omolo. Welcome. This is the Committee on Administration and Internal Affairs, National Assembly. which is going to vet you. And before we do that, I request you administer the oath. Yeah.
I, Dr. Raymond V.P. Ojwang Omolo, do swear that the information I shall give before this departmental committee on administration and internal affairs and the matter under its consideration shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help me God.
Thank you, Mr. Raymond Omolo. So now you know that you are under an oath, so anything you are going to tell this committee will be nothing but the truth. So before we start off, I will ask members to introduce themselves. Then after that, the Secretariat. And I want this time we start from coming this way. Honorable Sigay.
Chair, my name is Honorable Sigay, MP Sotik, member of this committee. Thank you.
I'm George Peter Kaluma, MP for Homa Bay Town. I don't know whether it is the right time to make declarations of interest, or I leave it at that. I know the nominee at a personal level. He does not only come from Homa Bay County, but I also know him as a person for a very long time. So I will recuse myself from asking any questions.
Very good, that's noted and is on record.
I am Rosa Akinyi-Buyu, Member of Parliament, Kisumu West Constituency, and a member of this committee.
Thank you, Chair. My name is Oku Kaunya, Member of Parliament for Teso North in Busia County and a member of this committee.
Thank you, Chair. Adumu Wuri is my name, the member for Nyakach and a member of this committee.
Thank you, Chair. My name is Fatuma Jeho, County MP Wajir, and a member of this committee. Thank you.
Chair, my name is Ruto'S MP for Loima constituency and a member of this committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I'm Mburu Kahangara, MP Lari constituency, Kiambu County, a member of this committee.
Thank you, Chair. I'm Liza Chelule, County MP Nakuru, and a member of Administration and Internal Affairs Committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Honorable Hussein Weitan, Member of Parliament, Mandera East, and a member of this committee.
Pet Kapondi, MP Mount Elgon, a member of the committee.
My name is Honorable Caroline Ngeleche, County MP for Elgeyo Marakwet, and a member of this committee.
Thank you, Chair. My name is Dido Raso, Vice Chair of this committee.
Honorable Gabriel Chongoyo, MP for Narok West, and the chair of this committee. And of course now a chair of the session. Now, we are going to have our Secretariat do also a quick introduction of themselves. Starting.
My name is Philip Lekarkar, Crack Assistant. My name is Dr. Mburu Maina, Research Officer.
My name is Edison Odhiambo, an economist from the Parliamentary Budget Office.
My name is Jemima Oigwa, Legal Counsel.
Thank you, Chair. My name is Maureen Moses, Legal Counsel.
Thank you, Chair. Noel Lamtabi, Legal Counsel. Delvin Onyancha, Legal Officer. Research Officers.
Thank you, Chair. Gideon Kukwait, Clerk Assistant.
Catherine Wangoi, Sergeant at Arms.
Rogers Kilunche, Audio Officer.
Bernard Jero, Clerk Assistant.
The fourth estate, karibuni. Very good. Having introduced ourselves, I want to once again tell our nominee a big welcome. And you got, of course, our invite for this. And as a requirement of law, according to Person to Section 7 of the Public Appointments Parliamentary Approval Act 2011, the committee is required to examine whether the nominee, in this case yourself, you meet the constitutional requirement relating to the office that you have been nominated to. And we are going to confirm whether you obtain the following compliance certificates. And as much as I'll be asking, meanwhile you can be passing your original, including professional, academics, to the Secretariat. You can be going through, confirm, but you can as well, for purposes of record. Mr. Raymond, Kenya, do you have compliance? I mean, have you complied with the Kenya Revenue Authority?
Yes, Chairman.
Good. The clearance with the Higher Loan Board?
Yes, I have a clearance from health.
What about with the Ethics and Corruption Commission?
Yes, there is a clearance from ESC. There is a form.
Certificate of Good Conduct from DCI?
Yes, that's available.
Register of political party. Do you belong to any party? Are you an official, a member of any political party?
No, I don't belong to any political party, Chairman.
I hope our secretariats are confirming the documents, the certificates. Mr. Raymond, I want to ask, according to our Chapter 6 of the Constitution of Kenya, on the Leadership and Integrity, Act number 19 of 2012 on the Public Officers Ethics number 4, in this regard, kindly tell this committee whether you have ever been charged in any court of law, convicted?
No, Chairman, never charged, never convicted.
Have you ever been mentioned, advisedly mentioned, in any investigatory report of the Parliamentary Committee?
No.
No. Now, yeah, you have answered the issue of the political party. I think that is okay. Now, what is your net worth?
So, Honorable Chairman, my net worth is approximately 450 million. Of course, it's composed of several items. The most notable one is on lands and property that is spread across in Kajiado, Machakos, Nairobi, Kisumu, and Homa Bay. And then I also have shares in a number of companies, of course, investment in stocks and money markets. And then I also have interest in farming as well as mining.
So you have broken them down?
Yes.
To the total said amount of 450 million?
Yes, Chairman.
Now, Mr. Raymond, kindly, I want to give you an opportunity to tell this committee a brief history of yourself, to include, of course, your social, academic, professional. Yeah. And Kenyans are watching, and you know the office that you nominated for. So tell us who you are.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, honorable members. My name is Raymond V.T. Ojwang Omolo, born on the 27th of December 1979 in Homa Bay. And of course, I would start with my schooling right from primary. Initially, I began my schooling in Kisumu at Muslim Primary School. At the age of 8, I lost my dad. I had to relocate back to the village. And for me, that was significant in the sense that there was a huge shift, having been brought up as a young boy. And then at the age of 8, that is class 3, losing a parent, and going back to the village. Of course, in the village, then I had to join a local primary school called Molagar Primary School. Interestingly, of course, we were the pioneer group. At that point, the school was in class 4, and we went with it until I got to class 6. Of course, at class 6, I had to again shift to another school in Rangwe called Rangi Primary School. And within those formative years, for me, it was critical that a number of things happened in terms of spending time in 3 different schools at the primary level, of course, looking for good results, and we were looking out for schools that would have students who perform better. Of course, from primary, I proceeded to Mbeta High School, where I did my high school, and then subsequently I joined the University of Nairobi. At the University of Nairobi, I joined to pursue statistics, and subsequently, upon completing my undergraduate, I proceeded for my master's, still within the same field, applied statistics, and later on, I went back for a PhD in applied statistics at Maseno University. But along the way, then I also had scholarships to study out of the country. Notably, I went to the University of Washington in Seattle. Away from that, then there is what I've been able to do as a professional, as a statistician. So I began my work at the University of Nairobi, working in research. And thereafter, I proceeded and joined an international not-for-profit organization called DNDI, or Drugs for Neglected Diseases Initiative. And there I worked as a head of data center and statistician. And a lot of my work involved doing research across the continent, primarily, and also within the country. So in the country, there was a lot of work that we were doing in Baringo, in West Pokot, and parts of Turkana. And then there is the belt that crosses all the way into Uganda, the place called Amudat. So that, for me, was also critical because the research we were doing involved trying to address challenges that affected the communities that were most needy in terms of intervention for treatment. And for members who come from those areas, there's a disease called Kala-Azar. And out of our work, we were able to do a lot in terms of coming up with interventions and even treatments just to improve the welfare of the people who are affected. But besides that, then there are challenges around those areas in terms of security. So again, these are things that we're dealing with on a daily basis in terms of how we design the research, how we conduct the studies, and also how we even recruit and then utilize the treatments to the people upon conclusions of the studies. In Africa, of course, there's work that we were doing in Uganda, work in the Sudan, in the north, of course, eastern Sudan, and then you cross into Ethiopia. And then we also were able to work in Ghana and Benin in West Africa. Now that partly involved the institution that I work for, but also WHO. So that, to me, is information that is important for this committee in terms of just understanding who Raymond is insofar as work is concerned. Of course, away from that, then I've also worked with FAO Somalia, trying to support their nutritional program in the Somalia in terms of looking at the interventions and the famine situation in Somalia. Then after that, I was also privileged to sit in the board of Consolidated Bank as a director, non-executive director. And as a board member of Consolidated Bank for 3 years between 2015 and 2018, I was able to chair the Committee on Risk and Credit. At the same time, I also chaired the Committee on Finance. And this was also an interesting period within the financial sector in the sense that that was a period that some of the banks were shut down or collapsed. And we were able to support Consolidated Bank, working with my colleagues at the board and the management, together with the National Treasury, to just keep the bank afloat. Of Of course, today the bank is still operating, but its challenges, I think, is something that is of public notice. But again, there, as a director, we were able to ensure that we are addressing issues around security of the monies that were held by the bank. Then, as we speak today, I am the Managing Director of Lake Basin Development Authority. And as a Managing Director of Lake Basin Development Authority, part of my responsibility in steering the institution is to ensure that the institution lives up to its mandate, which is to improve the socio-economic development of the region, or the Lake Basin region. Geographically, Lake Basin Development Authority takes care of 18 counties, which is almost half of the entire country in terms of the counties. So you're talking about the entire former Nyanza province, the entire former Western province, and parts of the Rift Valley. And by that positioning, and in an attempt to try to address the mandate of the institution, I've had to work closely, not just with the management and the staff of the institution, but the board, whom I report to, together with the State Department and the parent ministry, in steering the organization to the space that it occupies within the government structure. Now, at Lake Basin Development Authority, I've been able to achieve a number of critical things. Number one is with regards to human resource. When I went to the institution, we were able to review the human resource instruments that had never been touched since 1989. That in itself helped us address the challenges around the staff welfare in terms of their remuneration and also their well-being, as well as also address the issues around staff stagnation, staff promotion. And this we were able to do, of course, working together with the board, the Salaries and Remuneration Commission, and the Public Service Commission. Not to mention the parent ministry, but also the horizontal engagement with the national treasury. The second achievement, which is almost complete, is the governance structure of the authority, and not just Lake Basin Development Authority, but the sister institutions within the State Department for Regional Development Authority. Today, the law governing or that established the institutions are very old and outdated. In the case of Lake Basin, we have an act of 1979. You have a situation where you have a board of 18 to 20 directors. What we've been able to do, of course, me leading that front, is to engage Parliament, and we were able to engage the committee that we report to. And I've noticed there's one of your members who sits in that committee. And as we speak today, we were able to take the amendments through the first reading. It's unfortunate that we couldn't complete the process because then we had to go to an election. And to me, that is something very significant in terms of looking at the governance structure, but also clearly defining and protecting the mandate of the institution. The third achievement is with regards to trying to help the institution to take care of its establishment across the region, and also meet its mandate to serve the people. A case in point is we have one of our technology transfer centers, which is at the border between the Luos and Kuria of Migori County. This is more or less like a buffer zone, because over the years there's been a lot of conflict between the Luos and Kurias. And we set up this specific center, it's called the Chota, to first of all demonstrate to the communities what is possible in terms of agriculture and generally in terms of farming and best practices. And in a way that has helped to address the challenge around insecurity within that part of the region. Now, Chairman, away from that, then I have been involved in a number of consultancy work. And given my background in statistics, is my capacity to be able to design instruments that allows better data collection, have efficient systems for analyzing data, but also being able to properly communicate and articulate results that come out of those exercises. Now, looking at my vetting exercise that you are undertaking, and of course, if I am successful, that is, if you approve, of course, with concurrence of Parliament, then this is what I'll be bringing on the table in terms of my academic qualifications and experience in terms of work and the understanding of the job that I have been nominated to undertake. And part of that job includes not just ensuring that Kenyans are secure and safe, but then Kenyans also have an environment in which they can be able to go about their businesses and being treated impartially, irrespective of what their political position may be. But also, I'm bringing in the qualities of a team player, someone who has a capacity to work not just with juniors within the State Department, but also to work across government agencies to support the government in coordinating and implementing its policies. But also the experience working in Parliament, working in the National Treasury. You can count on me to be that individual who would be consultative, would have an open door policy, but also work by the rules, not to go against what the rules or the laws of the land dictate. Thank you.
Thank you, Molo. I don't know, have you heard you talking about family life? Or?
Yes, Chairman, I am a family man, and I believe in family. But probably I would want to not go beyond that. I'm Christian, practicing Seventh-day Adventist.
Very good. You know, according to Article 77, you know, which stipulates that a full-time state officer shall not participate in any gainful employment. So, as it is now, have you already resigned as the MD or intending to do so?
So, Chairman, if confirmed, I would definitely tender my resignation as the Managing Director for Lake Basin Development Authority, but also because of the requirements for this new position, if confirmed, then I would also dedicate my time 100% to the service of the State Department and the government.
So anyway, so before I finish and pass back to my vice, while trying to demonstrate to us on what you bring on the table, it kind of seems to mention a little bit maybe your plan for the ministry, but maybe a little bit try to elaborate further. What is your vision for the State Department that you have been nominated for? Try to convince this committee. What is your vision?
Chairman and honorable members, my vision for the State Department, that is, if confirmed, number one, will draw majorly from the President of the government's vision for this current administration. And one of that is very critical for the State Department is on provision of security. Number two is to ensure that, or to achieve proper service delivery, which involves a lot of coordination across government. So this is one of the things that then will be critical in running the State Department. But away from that is the fact that as a State Department, we become a go-to State Department, so that then if Kenyans are having issues, then we would be the people to support and to help in making sure that they are able to access the services. The other critical thing for me is that we would be running a transparent State Department, just like the President has pronounced himself on running a transparent government. That's what I see for the State Department.
Very good. My vice, take over from that.
Thank you very much, Chair. Dr. Omolo, congratulations on your nomination.
Thank you.
I believe the purpose of this vetting is to look at competence and also suitability. In this, I will ask you a series of questions that you may note down and subsequently you can respond. The first one is Article 10 and Article 232 of the Constitution that largely talks of national values and principles of public service. How do you intend to apply this in the docket that you have been assigned if Parliament is going to approve your nomination? Secondly is Article 201. This is about principles of public finance, which includes accountability and prudent use of public funds. To this, how do you intend to ensure the principles of public finance? And here I'm referring you directly to public finance management. Act 18 of 2012, because you'll be the accounting officer of the department that you have been assigned. Thirdly, if approved by the House, what measures will you come up with to ensure efficiency is achieved? I'm sure by now you know the manifesto, you are familiar with manifesto of Kenya Kwanza, the government that will be working for. The fourth and the final point, Article 72 of the Constitution provides that a state officer shall not hold dual citizenship. Maybe tell the committee if you hold dual citizenship or maybe you are Kenyan or you are aspiring to acquire it by virtue of maybe so many factors. Thank you, Chair.
So as you prepare to answer, before we pass to the other members, you can also maybe note down, you can give us briefly, just briefly explain to this committee how much you understand on the mandate of the State Department that you have been nominated for. So you can tell us what do you know about it, their mandate and all that.
So, thank you, Chair. I would want to respond, of course, in no particular order. So maybe let me start with the question on measures I would undertake if appointed to ensure that there is efficiency within the State Department. Now, I think what has happened over time is there is always the frustration or the tendency for people to look at government or whatever service it is as being slow. And over time, again, there have always been attempts, and to a larger extent, very successful, in terms of just improving on efficiency of running government functions. Now, to deal with that within the State Department, one of the things that I would be looking into, first, there needs to be a proper understanding of the various functions that the State Department undertakes. And in those various functions, have an assessment of where there are bottlenecks. So for example, are we able to automate certain functions within the State Department? I know that there are certain functions that have been automated. There are certain functions that are being automated. Case in point, within the police service, there is the pilot program that is going on digitizing the OB, occurrence books. Now, one of the things that I would want to do, or I would want to follow up on, of course, with engagement with the National Police Service and the relevant stakeholders, is on how to progress this from a pilot phase to something that then becomes rolled out across the country, so that then we move away from the physical OBs. So that, to me, would be one way of addressing efficiency within just that space. The other thing is on the capacity of the officers. And the reality of life today is that things are developing or changing very fast, so that whatever is working today might not be what is relevant tomorrow or the day after. And there is need to equip the officers with the most latest technological know-how to support them in undertaking their responsibilities. So those could be trainings on technology or technological advances that are there, but then there also we need to look at trainings that are human resource oriented, whether in terms of the capacity of the administrators to properly deliver and engage the public. So we'll have to look at training and retraining, and where adjustments need to be made in terms of the module or the curriculum, we will do that, of course, with the consultation of the relevant stakeholders. The other issue that directly goes into addressing or dealing with the issue or the question of efficiency is the welfare of the officers themselves. Are our officers properly remunerated? Is the progression within the career properly documented and clear? And even in instances where that exists, there is evolution that happens every other day. And you want a situation where the staff feel that they are properly taken care of. So those are issues that I would be looking at to help address and support efficiency. Whether it's issues on accommodation, whether it's issues on the tools of trade. So if it is police officers, you probably are looking at the equipment that they have. If it is the commissioners or the county commissioners, the vehicles and the stuff that allows them to move around, so that then you're able to provide services to Mwananchi. But also, most importantly, there needs to be clarity on the part of the public in terms of their expectations of the services. So do we have service charters? And if service charters exist, do we need to review them based on the realities of the day? So that then the public know that when they are coming to seek for a service, it's very clear on how long it takes to get the service. And that way, apart from just addressing the concern on efficiency, then it also allows you to clearly communicate with the public, so that then there are no gray areas in as much as possible. Second question was with regards to Article 10 and Article 232.
Yeah, as you plan to answer, I appreciate you are really trying to go deep into the matters, but just try to summarize a little bit, because I can see the kind of number of questions posted by members.
Thank you, Chair. So, of course, Article 10 and 232 on that looks at the national values as well as public service. There are a number of things that come to mind, but with regards to the State Department and what I'll be bringing on board is that we must have a public service that is efficient and also fair. Then there is an aspect of openness and accountability, but also the integrity on part of myself as an officer, and of course every other officer who is in public service. And based on my experience already working at Lake Basin Development Authority, and I've been working as an accounting officer, these are key ingredients that have dictated my running of the office as a managing director, and I have no intention of stopping. So this will continue in terms of fairness, in terms of being efficient, in terms of being open to public scrutiny, and also in terms of being accountable. And while at it all, then there is the rule of law, that we must abide by the rule of law, and of course the regulations as established by the House that you represent yourselves. Chair, there was a question on dual citizenship. I think that to me is straightforward. I'm a Kenyan. I do not have citizenship of any other country. The other question was with regards to public finance management, and there is a clarity on the prudent use of public resources, in the sense that the resources at our disposal are entrusted to us by the public, and the public expect no less of proper use, so that there is value for money in whatever activities or in whatever services that either we procure or we provide. Now, there is a whole budgeting process within the PFM Act, which also dictates how the budget cycle runs, who gives approvals at what point in time, and primarily it's the responsibility of Parliament to appropriate budget, so that as an accounting officer, if approved, I can only expend what Parliament has appropriated. So that is clear. And within it, of course, there are specific regulations that dictate specific aspects of how public finance is managed. And what I'll be looking at is to ensure that we go by each and every provisions of the regulations as captured within the Public Finance Management Act. Then there was the question of how I understand the mandate of the State Department. And I would probably take it back to what is the mandate of government. Primarily, it's provide security, of course, to make sure that the population is healthy, and also to educate for sustainability and for the growth of the country. And this State Department is at the center of that. It's basically the fulcrum on which the rest of government oscillates around. So there is a critical role on coordination, so that then government policies are properly not just articulated, but are also properly implemented across government. So that is one of the key responsibilities. Then there is the question of security, to ensure that Kenyans are safe, but not just safe, that people can go on about their businesses peacefully without disruptions or interference. So again, this State Department is critical in ensuring that is achieved. And then the third bit is in terms of promoting nationhood and statehood within the country. So again, this State Department is critical in achieving that. And this is through the officers at various levels, right from the top down to the assistant chiefs, and of course by extension the other members of the public who are engaged and who support that particular facet of ensuring or fostering that we remain one nation, one state, with a common agenda, without unnecessary division and disruptions. I think I've responded to all the questions.
Yeah, I think you have really tried to handle. So, members, we are going to pass to you, and I propose we do a set of three members that go, then we give him back to answer. So, do we just like this, or just go around? Unless you don't have anything? Yeah. Yeah, Mr. Omolo, there is this program which has been running for some time, where the government leases vehicles for Ngao. And in this program, there are thousands of vehicles which are leased every year, but physically on the ground, you can see very few. What do you think is a challenge? And further, do you think that leasing of these motor vehicles by the government is more cost effective compared to direct purchase? That's my question number one. Number two, you'll also be dealing with government press. Government press is one of the institutions that will be under your docket. And should you be confirmed, how would you ensure that it is modernized to deal with the domestic demand of printing government documents, including security documents? And finally, on Nakada, with the promulgation of 2010 Constitution, the revenue streams for the agency went down to the county governments. And now the agency is fully dependent on the exchequer for their operations. How do you intend to ensure that the agency deliver on its mandate given the expenditure constraints facing it? And in your opinion, was it wise idea to transfer the function controlling drugs abuse to the counties? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Welcome, Mr. Omolo. At least I'm happy that my agent is now nominated as the Principal Secretary. You know, but Mr. Omolo, there are so many administrative units that have been created in the last maybe 5 or more years, but unfortunately they have not been operationalized. In my constituency alone, there are 2 sub-counties, one created 5 years ago and the other one created at least a year before the elections, but not operationalized. One has a DCC, but the other one not yet. And across the country, the same thing happens. So many sub-counties, administrative units were created, but they have not been operationalized. What is your plan now that you are coming as a principal secretary in this strategic department? What is your plan in operationalizing these administrative units? Number 2, especially in the pastoralist areas, like where I come from, in Mandera, we have problems of insecurity. And our police officers have been overpowered recently. And it is now handled by, or assisted by the Kenya Police Reserves and the National Police Reserves. I'm sure you understand the difference between the two. Kenya Police Reserves are normally paid by counties, but National Police Reserves are paid by the national government. Now these two, the county KPRs are paid 10,000 shillings a month, while the National Police Reserves are paid 5,000 shillings. You can understand someone you entrusted with a gun and you are paying him so little like that. What will follow? What is your plan also in changing the lives of those people, motivating them by giving them a higher pay, giving them pension? Recently in my constituency, there are 8 of them shot by the terrorists. their kids are now suffering. There is no pension, there is no, compensation. What is your plan in, changing the lives of those people and maybe entrenching them in our police forces? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair, and the honorable members. Karibu, Mr. Omolo. My question is about climate change. We all know climate change is a global problem and it is affecting Kenya. Climate change has actually impacted negatively on the issue of food production. My question is, do you think these two problems, or the insecurity of food insecurity and environment insecurity, is under your docket? And if so, how are you going to mitigate with the common mwananchi or with the community? My number 2 question, Mr. Chair, concerns the village elders. Mr. Chair, I want to ask for your permission to speak in Kiswahili, because I would also want them to listen to what you are saying. Okay, asante sana. Bana Omolo, tunakupongeza sababu umeteuliwa kuja kuwa PS katika ofisi ya Internal Security. Ningependa tu kuuliza swali chache kuhusu wazee ya vijiji na nyumba 10. Tuko na hawa pale nyumbani na ni structure ama ni mpango ya serikali kufanya kazi na hao wazee, vile mnafanya kazi, vile utafanya kazi na chiefs. Ningependa utuelezee unaelewa nini kuhusu vijiji, wazee ya vijiji na nyumba 10. Tofauti yao ni nini na kazi yao ni nini? Na kuna pendekezo kubwa sana kwamba hawa wazee ama hawa viongozi ya vijiji walipwe pesa kama vile wengine wanalipwa, kama vile chief analipwa na kama vile hao wengine wenye mtafanya kazi pamoja wanalipwa. Maoni yako ni nini? So utilie maanani, utueleze leo kazi ya vijiji, ya wazee ya vijiji ni nini na kazi ya nyumba 10
Point
ni
of order,
nini?
Chairman. Point of order.
Yes, Will.
Point of order, Chairman.
Go on.
Unless I'm wrong, Mr. Raymond Omolo might be coming from Nyanza, a place which is not too conversant with Kiswahili, so probably we need to confirm that he's understanding the questions being raised by the honorable member.
Yeah, but I think we are aware.
Chair,
Yes.
I think if you go through the file, Omolo's file, it is clearly indicated. He speaks fluent English, Kiswahili, and Zulu.
Yeah, but the chair was actually making a ruling on the same. Kiswahili is a parliamentary language. It's only that we are guided that once you start with Swahili, you go with Swahili. Once you start with English, and I think the member sought the permission of the chair. So I think the member is rightfully, she's in order.
Asante sana bwana mwenyekiti, na muhurumia mheshimiwa Rosa, ni shida kwake sana, na tungependa siku moja ajaribu kuongea kwa lugha ya Kiswahili, sio umenge kila mara. So bwana Omolo, utuelezee vizuri sana, hawa ni wale watenda kazi, mtafanya kazi na hawa kila mara na ni wengi sana. Wangependa kusikia maoni yako kuwahusu. Asante bwana mwenyekiti.
Fair enough. I think as we agreed earlier, we'll be doing a set of 3 mini answers. But just try, as much as I will appreciate you do it satisfactorily, try to compress, because members are many, questions are many. You know the seat is hot that you are nominated for. And Kenyans are watching. Actually, I'm told about several TV stations are screaming live. Yeah.
So thank you, Chairman. I'll attempt to be brief so that then we are able to take in as many questions as possible from the honorable members. And just for the comfort of the honorable members, yes, I will respond in Swahili where necessary. Okay. So there's a question on the vehicle leasing by Honorable Kapondi. And there's an observation that there is not much on the ground. First, I would want to understand that so that then I don't think I will be able to confidently pronounce myself on the fact that there are no vehicles or there is not so much on the ground. So one of the first things, of course, if this committee recommends my appointment, would be to want to understand whether this is the situation or not. And of course, if it's the situation, then I think there needs to be further engagements just to really appreciate what the issue is. But just from the top of my head, and I would want to link this to the question by Honorable Hussein on the issue of a number of administrative units that have not been operationalized. And I would want to imagine that this could possibly be one of the reasons where you have many officers, yet the resources that are available at their disposal is not adequate for them to be able to deliver or to do their work. And I wouldn't think that this is an operational issue. And again, if it's an operational issue, we can be able to have further engagement of camera on that. But for me, then the point would be that one is to understand what the problem or the challenge is, and if we are able to just address the gap. And largely that might be an issue of budget, and it's within the space of this committee through the House to be able to ensure that budgetary provisions are made so that then the security of Kenyans is guaranteed. And you remember I mentioned that security is one of the top things that the government needs to be responsible for. On the question of whether outright purchase or leasing is ideal, I think, again, let's look at, I want to believe there must have been genuine reasons that guided the need for the government or for the State Department to go for a leasing program. And maybe looking at a situation of trying to focus the responsibility of the institutions or of the State Department or the officers and agencies on their core mandate. And again, this has happened over a number of years. Maybe it's an opportunity or it's time to have an assessment whether it has really worked, whether it's achieved the goal that it was intended for or not. And again, if we realize that it is not achieving the goal, it's important that the relevant stakeholders are engaged and a proper or a better suited mechanism of ensuring that the officers are able to deliver are implemented. And these are things that then, whichever decisions are made, then have to be done, of course, in consultation, and even in terms of by way of reports to this committee of the House. The second question was on government press. Truth is, we are running an old relic in the name of a government press, and there is need to have it modernized. Now, modernizing it will require a huge amount of resources, and we need to look at innovative ways of fundraising or of getting the resources to run the government press. There might be need to either look at maybe it's a direct exchequer allocation, or we could look at a PPP mechanism where we're able to bring the private sector to partner with the public sector to help us realize this, because again, this is a very critical function that is domiciled within the State Department that I'm being vetted for, and it is something that needs to be dealt with. There was a question on NACADA, and the Honorable Kapondi rightly put it that their revenue streams have significantly gone down, primarily on account of devolution of certain responsibilities, and with those responsibilities, then the taxes collected are now being taken up by the counties, and that has made it difficult for NACADA to fully realize its mandate. Now, one of the ways to address this challenge, I think there needs to be consultation across the two levels of government in terms of ensuring that even though the components, certain components have been devolved, then the counties also take their fair share in terms of helping achieve part of the mandate. And that might also require a relook at even the regulations or the laws that set up NACADA. But also, I think it's incumbent upon the House, through this committee, that we make adequate budgetary provisions to enable NACADA to live up to its mandate. Otherwise, then it beats the whole essence of keeping NACADA. Was it wise to devolve? I don't think I would want to question the decision of Kenyans, and we are guided by the Constitution, and it's very clear who is responsible forward. So for me, the question that we need to be looking at is, where are the bottlenecks and how do we work together in a collaborative manner to address the bottlenecks so that the original intention is not lost. And Honorable Hussein raised the question on many administrative units that are yet to be operationalized. I think the major challenge would be primarily around the budgets. And you realize that we have apart from the administrative units, we even have officers who are unable to effectively discharge their mandate. So to me, this is something, again, we need to work together as a State Department, if confirmed, with yourselves as a committee, to just see on how to operationalize these administrative units. Actually, if you look at the resource requirements, we're talking of amounts in excess of 7 billion Kenyan shillings to operationalize the administrative units, including having officers in those spaces. Then there was the issue on insecurity, where the police are overwhelmed, and then of course we have to call in on the reservists to support. And the truth is, even with those, we still have challenges. At the moment, we have slightly in excess of 100,000 police officers to look after over 50 million Kenyans. And then of course, this is also not evenly distributed, because then there are specific either strategic installations, there are officers of government like yourselves who then require much more protection in terms of the numbers of officers that are assigned to yourselves. And this then speaks to the gap that is occurring across the country. Now, in terms of whether we need to better remunerate the reservists, I think it comes back to this House through the committee, because again, this requires budget, and the only body mandated to address budget or appropriate budget is Parliament. I think the work they're doing is good, and there was a good reason why the reservists came in to backstop the police officers. If there are issues around how they are operating, then those are things that then can be looked at from an operational standpoint, but also from wider consultations across the various stakeholders. Then, Honorable Chalule, there is a question or the issue on climate change, and this directly speaks to the issue of insecurity. And one of the biggest sources of insecurity is food insecurity. And there is a direct correlation with the other aspects of security. So when people are looking for food, then there's a tendency that they would go and use extra judicial means, or they take extra steps. And this, of course, you can look at even the situation in the north with the banditry. Either people are looking for pasture, and then there's conflict around those areas. And this is directly as a result of what we're observing in climate change. in terms of how to mitigate, I think we need to have a broader look at the whole situation, and it needs to be a multi-sectoral approach. At Lake Basin Development Authority, of course, I have the experience of working closely with the National Environmental Management Authority just to do climate change mitigation and adaptation within the Lake Basin region. And I think this is something that, for example, if we were to expand its scope across the various agencies, then we would be moving towards trying to address the issue on food production and, by extension, food security. Then kuna swali kuhusu tofauti ya wazee wa vijiji. Those are the village elders na nyumba kumi. Now, wazee wa vijiji ni watu wanaheshimika kwa kila kijiji, na administrators wa serikali hufanya kazi na hao. Kazi yao ya muhimu ya kwanza ni wenyeji, so wanaelewa vitu ama tatisho zenye ziko kwa kijiji, na kwa sababu hiyo nafikiri ni watu muhimu kukuwa nayo katika structure ya serikali. Now, on the how, in terms of managing them, and you'd allow me to switch to English so that that is clear, then we need to have proper guiding provisions, which again, the State Department that I'll be going to, if approved by yourselves, need to work on, of course, involving the communities, just to ensure that they are properly taken care of, and of course the house needs to make provisions for that. But they provide a very important solution in government administration. They are probably the first port of call when you think about dispute resolution. Mzee amepiga bibi ama watoto wamefukuzwa shule, wazee wa vijiji watafuatilia mambo kama hayo. Wanaweza waipeleka kwa assistant chief, waipeleke kwa chief, ama wailete kwa wanasiasa kama nyinyi, ili tuwe na makao mazuri kwa vijiji. Nyumba kumi, kujua tu ni nani jirani yako, so that kama jirani amelala njaa unaweza, kama jirani amekuja na mtu mwenye ako na tabia mbaya, unaweza ingilia, ama unaweza peleka mambo mbele ili hiyo mambo itatuliwe. Sijui kama nimejibu vizuri. Thank you.
Bwana Speaker, asante sana. Amejaribu kujibu, ingawa haujasema kazi ya kila kikundi, kazi ya village elders ama kazi ya vijiji, wazee wa vijiji, na kazi ya nyumba kumi ni nini, lakini umejaribu.
Asante.
Umejaribu. Pongezi.
So another set of English. Maybe English we go to Kagara. Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. Daktari, succession management and staff stagnation, whereby you find some people lasting the same cadre or the same position for up to 7 years, has been a challenge in the ministry. How are you going to address this challenge if appointed? That is one. Then question number 2 is the current situation. Currently, crime rate has gone up in the country, with survey indicating that most crimes are committed in broad daylight. Fine criminals are targeting individuals, business premises, residential homes, M-Pesa operators, banks, and other personal and private property. In your view, what is the cause of rising crime in Kenya? And if approved, what measures are you going to put in place to ensure that the lives and property of Kenyans are protected? Question number 3, what is your strategy in fighting the emergence of criminal gangs and proliferation of small arms in the country? Last but not least, you find that for several years now, cattle rustling has been going on in the northern Kenya for over 40 years. Lives have been lost and people are living in fear, and that is a day-to-day threat for people living in those counties. It is no longer a cultural practice, but has become a fully fledged, organized and commercialized crime. What plans do you have to eradicate the menace of banditry and cattle rustling once and for all, and beef up security in the affected areas? That is some parts of the Rift Valley, the Kerio Valley, the northern part of Kenya, and other parts of the nation. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Raymond, you can have just one question for you. In 2019, government or the Ministry of the Interior then added more responsibilities to the national government administrative officers. Among them is maintain good government image, representation of the head of state at any position, and promotion of statehood and nationhood. Now, would ask first, what policies do you think needs to be put in place to ensure that these officers are able to undertake these responsibilities? Then probably from a point of issues that we have seen in during the last elections, we saw administrative officers, national government administrative officers, chiefs, campaigning for particular candidates. Chiefs, of course, are the national government administrative officers who will work for the government of the day, but they are also supposed to be partisan. What do you think you'll do with the new government to ensure that this does not happen in our country again? Do you think that is a portrayal of good image, government image, you know, when they are campaigning for particular candidates and yet they are supposed to be non-partisan? We have also seen within the ministries profiling of officers on tribal basis. A law working, for example, in central Kenya. And when there is a government that probably one way or the other leans towards tribal, because that's what you have seen in Kenya, there was an instance of an officer who was interdicted for 6 months on the grounds that he was seen to be partisan or to be supporting a particular political party. What would you do to ensure that you protect the civil servants, and also to ensure that the civil servants maintain that image of being non-partisan, and that they should be working for all Kenyans? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, I think I will cover 2 areas. One is on the response by the government to the current drought and famine, and the other one is related to issues of budget. Dr. Molo, my first question is, drought and famine is currently ravaging more than 30 counties in this country, and this is affecting more of ASAL counties, and this is because of failed rainfall, which is associated to climate change. And the government has declared this a national disaster. My question would be, what intervention should the government put in place to mitigate this situation, considering the fact that the government has already started a relief program, but unfortunately this food relief reaches sub-county headquarters, and then it doesn't move from there to the final beneficiaries, for the reason that there is no AIE to DCCs or people responsible to enable this food to reach to the final beneficiaries. It means the food reaches the sub-county headquarters, and then that's the end. So what is the government doing about it? Because the people who are affected are not living at sub-county headquarters. They are living right in the villages there. So how do this food get there? Secondly, the State Department for Interior and National Administration is one of the departments within government where there are several stalled projects. How do you intend to ensure the return on investment on these projects? Many of them are all over the country. Secondly, The State Department is one of the highest contributor to contingent liabilities in government, where citizens sue the government and get compensation awarded by courts. How do you reverse this trend and ensure that those who are compensated or awarded are paid accordingly? Because people are awarded, but there's no payment which is done. Therefore, this piles up. Third, and the list, the last one is pending bills. This issue of pending bills came up during devolution. Some of us have never heard of it before, but during devolution is when we start having the pending bill issue. This issue has affected many departments of government agencies. So my question will be, how do you intend to help the government reduce the escalation of pending bills and pay these bills in time? Because I think pending bill is not paying the bills on time. So they escalate and then they pile up. Thank you very much.
Very good. Maybe we let him respond to those. Yes, then we take another sense.
So thank you, Chair. Let me start with the questions by Honorable Charity on succession management.
It's known as Caroline.
Caroline,
Leche.
Sorry, I got it as, yeah, sorry for that, Honorable Leche. So the issue on succession management, I think the first thing for me would be to look at, one is the HR instruments, are they effective? And of course, literally everyone in government is hired by the Public Service Commission, at least looking at the State Department that I'll be going into, if approved. But then also there's a Police Service Commission as well. So there needs to be an engagement just to try and understand where the problem or the gap is, because you do not want officers who feel stagnated or who feel that they are not appreciated in the work that they do. What I would do is have that conversation, and where there are gaps that needs to be addressed, then we will be able to deal with that. Some of that might be tied to budgetary constraints. Again, there is a whole process of doing budgets, and what I will be doing, I'll be at the forefront of helping have that engagement with the National Treasury, not just the National Treasury, but also with this committee on behalf of the whole House, so that then we are able to fully address the challenges on human resource. And this is something that can be done. I have the experience, I've done it at Lake Basin Development Authority, and I don't have any reason why it cannot be done within the State Department. Then there is the issue of high crime rates, and to me it's a reflection of so many things. As it is today, the state of the economy is very bad, meaning that people can barely afford to put a meal on the table. And with that, then people start to look for options which might not be legal or might not be correct. Then there's a high level of unemployment in the country. This is an open fact. And even where there is employment, there is underemployment. So to me, these are key issues that need to be addressed from a wholesome point of government, in terms of trying to not just implement policies, because if we don't address issues around the state of the economy, if we don't address the issue around unemployment and underemployment, then we'll be lying to ourselves that the rates of crime will significantly go down. But having said that, I think this also is no excuse for people to become criminals. And there are laws that govern how to deal with criminals. If approved into this office, I would be working with the relevant agencies and organs of law enforcement to be able to effectively address, at least from a legal standpoint, the issue of crime. But also we need to better equip our officers in terms of intelligence gathering, so that then we also don't have wholesome condemnation of whether it is the youths or a certain cadre of people for being the cause of these criminal acts. Then there was a question on criminal gangs and small arms. We have a government, so there's no room to have criminal gangs in the country. And one of the things that I think needs to be done is we need to, first of all, there needs to be a proper understanding. Within the State Department, of course, there is the Crime Research Unit, which I'm sure has done a lot of work and has a lot of information in terms of just understanding and also collecting information on crime. And this would include even the criminal gangs. That would make us better understand even the organization and the composition and the push and pull factors, so that then we can effectively deal with them. Now, small arms, one is that as a country we are not an island, so we have our neighbors, and not all our neighboring countries are stable. So you find that there's a lot of proliferation of guns, either coming from across the borders, but also even internally there is a lot of guns in the hands of civilians. And I know at the moment a lot of attempts have been made to try and document that, so that we know who owns guns, and of course for whatever reason, and what the risks are. But maybe this needs to be looked at again in terms of improving the regulations and the processes of administering or of giving people small arms, so that if there is an incident, then we can be able to tag or link those specific guns or bullets to individuals, so that then people are then held to account in the event that they are not properly being used or being misused. And there was a question on castle rustling, and this is something that has gone on in this country for many years, as the Honorable Member for Elgeyo has indicated. And it's no longer more of a cultural thing. It's become a criminal enterprise, and there's a lot of money out of engaging in that vice. Now, I know there are a lot of attempts that the government has tried to address this, and when I come into office, if approved by yourselves, I would want to look at, there's an element of community engagement. There are people feeling that they're not properly involved, or they're not properly taken care of, whether you're looking at the issues around the infrastructure, whether you're looking at opportunities for people to earn decent livelihoods. Then besides just the leaders like yourselves, then there are other cadres of whether it's the church, that we need to have an engagement to help us address this. And then we need to look at new ways of combating caste rustling, in terms of how we gather intelligence, and also, where possible, use technology to help us with this. And we need to look across the world if where issues around caste rustling is prevalent, and what they've done. Case in point, if you go to a state like Texas in the US, there is a way in which they are able to brand or mark identify or tag the animals. And even in terms of punishment, it's proper punishment for the culprits that are involved, so that people don't just continue about it and then they can just go on with their lives, or they get very light penalties that does not deter them from doing that. Then equipping our officers, I think this also is important, so that our officers are able to get to these places on time. From a legal standpoint, I know there's a protocol that was developed in 2008 to deal with this. I know Uganda has ratified the protocol. As a country, we haven't, but definitely there must have been good reasons for that. So these are some of the things that I'll be looking into, just to see how to close the gap on this menace. Then Honorable Mburu talked about the fact that there are more responsibilities that were given to the national government administrative officers, and asked about the policies that are needed to facilitate the officers. And for me, this goes back to the core or the mandate of the State Department in terms of providing security for Kenyans. Now, we need to look at the policies that exist. Where a review needs to happen, then we'll be doing that, so that whether it's on issues on the level of training, the duration of training, at the moment, because of the budgetary constraints, you have situations where officers are appointed, and we have been unable to take them through all the rigors of the training that is needed for them to work. So these are things that, working together with this committee, we can be able to expedite and prioritize, because for me, this goes right at the heart of security, and to me this is a matter that should be on top of the priority list for what Parliament needs to address, including appropriating resources for it. The issues of officers campaigning for candidates, I wouldn't have a wholesome condemnation of all officers. There are probably isolated cases, but I would, with the indulgence of the chairman, I would ask not to comment further on that. Same goes to profiling of officers, but from a broader look of it, there is Article 232 on public service, and it guides on how a number of processes on how public officers are expected to operate. And what I'm promising, if confirmed into this office, is to ensure that we live by the dictates of the Constitution, and more specifically, the articles that touch on how public service is supposed to be undertaken, but also issues around the integrity and the ability of our officers to be audited for actions that we perform. Then, Honorable Akuja, there was a question on the drought and famine. What interventions to mitigate the situation? I think we must have a long-term view of things, so that then we don't have a situation or a crisis every single year, or every 2 years with a drought. We are running like we did not know that something was going to happen. And the President is very clear in terms of setting up this country onto a path that then the issue of famine will become a thing of the past. And he has pronounced himself in terms of giving direction across government in how this needs to be done, so that then in future we don't face such situations. Now, if confirmed into the office, then as a policy implementer, I will align myself with the government position, so that then this is dealt with properly. In the immediate, of course, the interventions that are going on needs to be addressed, given the challenges in terms of resources, where, like you mentioned, you find that the provisions are stuck at the headquarters. And it's not that I want to believe the officers would be more than willing to have the food rations distributed to the communities. But again, we're in a fiscal tight situation, and as Parliament, we need to look at what are the key priorities, so that then this it's one of those key priorities, then a lot of attention and necessary budgetary support is made available so that then we address the challenge that Kenyans are currently facing. There was a question on contingent liability. I think for me, I would speak to what I will do if confirmed into the office. And I'm consultative, I'll be consulting, and particularly a lot of these are legal issues, which then with proper consultation with the state law office, we will be able to properly deal with them. And where there are awards that have been given against the government, it's only natural that we follow the law. We will come to Parliament, make a case, and request that budgets are made available so that these pending bills, as a result of these liabilities, are settled to avoid escalation of costs. But from a more forward-looking point, how do we stop the scenario of pending bills? If we adhere to the provisions on public finance management, then the issue of pending bills ought not to arise, because then we will only procure on the basis of what Parliament has appropriated and monies that are made available. And at the same time, we run processes that are fair and transparent so that then we get value for money. Chairman, I think I have
stalled project.
So
Still on. Responding to that.
Okay. So on the stalled projects, within the State Department, of course, a number of the stalled projects are mainly around housing, and the President and the administration is looking at alternate mechanism of jump-starting and actualizing some of those projects, particularly on affordable housing. And to me, this is one of the things we just push for its implementation, where the challenges around ownership and all that, then we consult across the various agencies that are responsible, so that then we are able to get value for money. But of course, again, going forward, we will avoid having stalled projects if we only undertake projects where there are budgetary provisions to do them.
Thank you. We have got roughly less than 40 minutes with quite a number of questions posted by members. So I still remind that you try to satisfactorily answer them.
Yeah.
Compressed. So we are going to give like still set of 3. Fine. So yeah, go on.
Thank you, Chair. Dr. Raymond, welcome to this committee. Mine actually is not a question, it's more of an observation that maybe will translate into a question. Mr. Raymond, I can see you have been, firstly, you've worked in a private sector mostly. If I look at these positions and the predecessors that have held this position are people who rose through the ranks of maybe police or administration or something similar to that. Here you are as a statistician to the most powerful docket, interior and national administration. How do you envision that? That may also take me what could be the reason why you have been taken to this docket. Is there a secret? If yes, kindly share with us. Lastly, having worked as a board of director in a bank, what could be the reason why our banks are falling and subjecting clients to risks as a risk management? Thank you.
Chairman, I'm impressed by the nominee, especially the Swahili bit, which seems to be better than As a linguist, that Swahili is better than that of Rosa Akinyi, the member for Kisumu West. I'm quite impressed, Chair. He has answered most of the questions satisfactorily, and I don't want to bore the committee of the nominee.
Thank you,
in this
Chair.
case, then,
Chair.
maybe I will do 4. After Kaunya, maybe we'll go to Ross.
Chair, with your permission, I want to request that you impress upon Honorable Rosa to hold on until her term. I wanted to say our nominee, Dr. Omolo, I happen to have been a member of Ngao during the Moi days. I was a district officer. I rose to be a district commissioner, to senior district commissioner, to regional commissioner. Currently, and in the docket in which you are going to undertake national administration for Ngao, is one of the key departments. And this department, as you are aware, is the engine of coordination of government activities in the country. There is an act of parliament, National Government Coordination Act number 1 of 2013, that anchored this particular institution into government after the 2010 constitution. But I want to ask whether you are aware that this institution, its capacity has been eroded significantly to the point that it is only there in name. And I'm saying that because today, I will give you an example. At the chief level or the DO's level, you will find the chief is better equipped than the district officer, or nowadays they are called assistant county commissioners. The chief rides a motorbike and he gives a lift to the district officer to go to a baraza, which is really demeaning at times in terms of the structure. So as you answer that question, my question will be, what are you going to do to ensure that this institution that is key to the coordination overall to the ground comes back to what it was, the days when a district officer would have, like I would have my Land Rover caravan, my hand hanging outside. I get to the baraza, everybody knows the government has come. And when the government is there, things are done effectively. Lastly, on the same, the chief now is susceptible to a lot of dangers. A lot of chiefs you would not have been killed. Why? Because there's another gap which you'll find. And our nominee, you'll realize that in 2018, there was reorganization in the police, which again is under your docket. This reorganization left all police, all chiefs' camps, which are mainly manned by the APs, as police posts. There was no support in terms of what we know. The administration police today is different from what it was before 2018, where the chief would always have a chief's camp that would support him in implementing his activities. What are you going to do to ensure that these important officers are supported? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Mola, I'm getting a lot of messages from Kenyans who are wondering that when they look at you, you might not be suitable for this particular job. And I'm wondering why. I think it's because they think the ministry is a rough, tough ministry, and that they think you look too soft for that position. Mr. Molo, would you look at all these Kenyans who are wondering and give them the commitment that looks indeed can be deceptive, and that probably you're up to the task? I'm glad that you've noted that your main mandate is to keep Kenyans safe and secure. And you've said that you're the MD for Lake Basin Development Authority, which squarely falls within Kisumu West constituency. Look at those people in Holo, Obambo, hoping to be paid. But recently, the president, who is also the head of the Kenya Kwanza team, pronounced that there is no more Kazi Mtani. I would like to ask you, because Kazi Mtani was by and large run by the administration wing or department, you if you do get appointed, or if you do get the approval of Parliament to become the next PS in this docket, what are you going to do to ensure that these young people get paid for the services they rendered? Thank you, Chairman.
No, let me answer those ones. I'll come to you, Bwana Balusa.
Thank you, Chair, and honorable members. So let me start with a question by Honorable Fatuma. It's interesting because for me this is the gist of the matter. I'm a statistician by training, and with an elaborate experience on matters of statistics. And it's interesting that even if you look at us here, at the end of the day, there will be a statistic that will come out of it. Now, my training makes me suitable for this office, if confirmed, in the sense that I'm coming with a mind that is able to design tools for collecting information, analyze them properly, and be able to communicate to inform whether certain interventions need to be made, and having the capacity to look at various scenarios. So for example, we are talking about a cattle rustling. We have the crime situation, we have the crime guns. And we have reports that come from all over. And it's important that before any reaction takes place, there's a proper understanding of what the situation is, so that when you intervene, then you're able to get the maximum impact. You only get that from a statistician. Now, look at my experience across, whether in the field, with the private sector, whether at Lake Basin Development Authority. And there are visible results you can see. So in the private sector, I talked about our research work, intervention that changed lives. At Lake Basin Development Authority, when I went in 2019, the year before, an evaluation by the Public Service Monitoring and Evaluation Secretariat put the institution at number 200 out of 227 parastatals. After a year, when the same evaluation was done, we were number 27. That speaks to my capacity, of course, working with teams to make a difference. The year before I went to Lake Basin Development Authority, the audit report or the Auditor General had given an adverse report on the institution. The 2 financial years under me, we had qualified opinions, and the financial year that has just ended, we will be getting a clean report based on the ML that we have received. So these are some of the things that I'm bringing into the State Department if confirmed, in terms of ability to turn things around, in terms of ability to get results. And maybe just to speak to what Honorable Buyu mentioned, I look humble but firm. Yes. So to any Kenyan watching, that is what you will get if this committee, and of course with the concurrence of Parliament, affirms my nomination. Is there a secret? I think I would take it back to my life from a young boy. And having lost my father at 8 years old, and having to change, and also get to appreciate the reality of life that you have families, people who go to bed angry. And that is life I lived in my earlier days, and to a large extent, that has also helped to shape my character. I lost my mother at 16, so in terms of taking responsibility, I started it earlier. And you are looking at someone confirmed into an office, someone who will be able to take responsibility, someone who will be able to analyze situations and prescribe the right interventions, someone who is consultative, who will be able to reach out, to understand, not just to support others, but also to get support, because none of us definitely has a monopoly of ideas. And someone who is going to implement the policies of the administration of the president. And the president is very clear on what he wants to do for the country, and Kenyans gave him the mandate. And as a PS, I would be an implementer of that policy. And someone who will be working with Parliament, where we need to have reviews of regulations, of policies, where we need to operationalize administrative institutions so that we move services closer to the people. I will be that person. Then there was the issue around banks. I had my experience at the bank, and there are a lot of explanations around banks' collapse, whether it's the regulations that are probably not being fully implemented. So where in a number of institutions you find that there are weak regulations, and the monitoring may not be as tight as it ought to be. Over time then, this comes out, and there is a danger of then the public losing their hard-earned savings. And there is need, and I know that the central bank, which is responsible for this, and of course then there is the Association of the Kenya Bankers, are working hand in hand to try and tighten that. And I think we all agree that there's been an improvement in that respect. So just to appreciate that bit of my experience. And of course there are issues around analyzing the risks. Yes, so there are risks that you can foresee, and then you are able to mitigate against those risks. In certain instances, there are risks that you cannot foresee, like we are yet to get through the COVID pandemic. Before 2000, no one imagined that we would go into a situation like that, and that then eventually directly affects businesses, and of course banks are businesses in themselves, but also for them to operate, the other business people need to get their services. Honorable Kaunya, I think it's a good thing having served as an administrator, and now you're on the other side as someone who is now legislating. And one of the first things, if confirmed, I would want us to see is have this conversation. Do we need to relook or look at the Act, the 2013 Act, so that then the public can be able to feel government, not in terms of any excesses or something that they want to run away from, but we want the public to look at government as an institution that is looking out for their welfare and is able to give the services that they want, and in a very efficient way. So that to me would speak to how to get the institutions back. But again, all this has to be done within the ambit of the Constitution. If you look at Chapter 1 and Chapter 2, in terms of the issues on independence, but also in the interdependence between various institutions and agencies of government. Honorable Rosa, you are our landlord, of course, as Lake Basin Development Authority, and what the people of Kisumu West need to know, or the assurance I can give them, is that...
Chair, point of order. Just to clarify.
What is Duma?
Yeah, I just wanted, before he answers that, just to correct that Lake Basin Development Authority is not in Kisumu West, it is in Kisumu Central, but he can go ahead to clarify that.
The member you're watching here was a commissioner with the Boundaries Review Commission, so she knows very well when she says Kisumu Lake Basin Development Authority falls in Kisumu West. Thank you, Chair.
Chair, is it in order to bring a boundary conflict within the committee?
I don't think it really matters where it is officed.
But it is in Railway's ward of Kisumu Central.
The chair is making a ruling. It doesn't matter where the headquarters is officed. I think you had just mentioned that it serves more than 18 counties.
Yes, 18 counties.
But anyway, I think they were just on a lighter note. So you can move forward. You can proceed.
Thank you, Chair, for that clarification and guidance. The headquarters is in Kisumu. Of course, I would not want to go into the detail because you've ruled on that. But then, as an authority, we serve 18 counties in the Lake Basin region. I think this is important for the assurance of Kenyans. Yes. Now, to the people of Kisumu West, where the Honorable Rosa Buyu represent, what is clear is that we will firmly deal with criminals within the provisions of the law, of course working with the relevant agencies. And while at it, we also need to look at the bigger picture so that then we address those enabling conditions so that people don't resort to crime as a way of life. On Kazi Mtaani, Chairman, I would ask that probably when I get into office, I'll be able to then get done the real details, who has been paid, who has not been paid, so that if allowed, I would want not to go into the specifics of what may have gone wrong or not gone wrong, or what has worked and what has not worked. And also, I think it's important to look at the bigger picture in terms of how do we address the question of unemployment and the question of underemployment, so that then there's a long-term solution to it.
Chairman, I'm sorry that I'm interjecting again, but this thing of bigger pictures, it is these small pictures that make bigger pictures. So what I'm looking for are specific steps and specific things that the nominee will be able to put in place so that the bigger picture can become a bigger picture. Otherwise, if we don't address all these small things, waiting to look at the bigger picture, we are hiding behind the bigger picture and not addressing specifics.
Kaunya? Yeah, I think the nominee is taken note. You should be able to appreciate, that the members are taking into account the kind of an office probably are going to get into, if approved by them, that they want real, tangible, solutions. Yeah. But anyway, let's have. You want to answer?
Chair. Chair, just a short one, so that as he concludes. The question that I really wanted to hear from you, whether you approve of a chief giving a lift to the DO because there are no facilities, equipment, whether you are going to improve on the equipment of these administrative officers. That's really the question. I didn't get the answer, Chair.
As he prepares to answer, maybe we can also get Honorable Sigei. I know he's a veteran, a very experienced administrator.
Chair, thank you so much for the for the opportunity. I think what I'm going to start with is what Honorable Kaunya has mentioned. I was going to ask that question. But first of all, I would like to support what Mr. Kaunya said, particularly on the officers in this cadre, the administration. I want to inform you that I have served from the lowest cadre of a DO to that of PC. And the rate at which these officers have gone down in terms of rating is so grievous. And I would like to suggest that you look at the way of boosting this office, because that is the image of government, really. And we're asking the question of facilitation. And I want to say that most of these officers, the national government administrative officers, do not have equipment and officers. And that is where we start the government image. As Mr. Kaunya has mentioned, the assistant county commissioners are riding on matatus. And this really spoils the government image. And Mr. Omolo, I would like you to address that issue so that we have these officers going to Barasas on a more comfortable and better facilities. Number two, I would like also you to look at even these motorbikes which have been given to the chiefs, whether really they have these motorbikes. Some of them don't. And even maintenance of these motorbikes is a problem. So I would like to ask you what you're going to do, particularly those officers who are working at home, the chiefs who are working under trees, and they are putting the government in a very awkward situation. And really, I am very impressed with what you have answered. And I have no doubt in my mind that you are going to do something about these issues. So that's number one. Number two, on the issue of administrative units which have been discussed earlier, I wonder whether these units did get the public participation. I would like you to look at those units, because some of them were just given by officers in the office without necessarily asking people to participate in this one. Then number three is the chiefs. I worked in Nairobi as a PC, and the chiefs in Nairobi are transferable. They move around the locations, and I found it very effective. I don't know whether you also want to have this kind of thing replicated in the other regions, so that they can be able to be exposed to other things and other people. Will it have any implication, financial implication? And then lastly, Mr. Omolo, Dr. Omolo, we have some graduate chiefs who are serving in government. Some of them have shown some interest in becoming DOs. Some of them are capable. I would like to ask you whether you will be able to give them chance so they can have some upward mobility. They can be promoted to be a DO because they are past their graduates and they can be able to serve in government. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. Dr. Raymond, I'm sure you're aware that the position, if you're approved by Parliament, the position you're going to hold is a very powerful one. And in subsequent governments, we can actually come up with names, and sometime when those names are mentioned, people shiver, because these people wielded a lot of power. Some of them misuse these powers. Of late, we have seen even your immediate predecessor has harassed people, Kenyans, including the current president. If you are approved and take up this position, are we expecting a continuation of the same?
Point of order, Chair.
What is it, Peter Kaluma?
Chair, two issues. I think we should.
Who is out of order?
The honourable member who is speaking has just condemned the outgoing PS material unheard. I think we should be a bit careful about that. If you want to discuss Kibicho, bring a substantive motion. We will join you in agreement. It's wrong to use an outgoing officer to ask another questions while concluding in his performance.
I stand guided, Chair. But probably just to end it, may I ask, are Kenyans going to see a different person? Are we going to see a continuation of what we have seen in subsequent governments, or are we going to see somebody different ready to serve Kenyans in that position? Thank you.
Fair enough. Maybe to just wrap up, my vice chair will have one question maybe to throw.
Thank you very much, Chair. I think Peter can be displeased with Honorable Kangara, but we all have our positions on issues, and very serious for that matter. Daktari, I'm looking at your appointment or your nomination. Maybe that one I'll just have a passing comment. Read about Robert McNamara, the president of Ford Motor Corporation, who was appointed the Secretary of Defense by John F. Kennedy. A total civilian who was able to turn around the defense industry by using what he calls scientific management. My question is just a minor one on working with Parliament. I think the previous guys, although we are not condemning them, they were running that office with hubris. They had very little regard for Parliament. And yet, like you rightly said, Parliament is where actually the budget is made, where a lot of matters or issues of concern to Kenyans is approved. Maybe your take in terms of how you are likely to work with Parliament so that Kenyans are safe, secure, and are able to go about their business without looking over their shoulders. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. As you prepare to answer, maybe you can add one or two. One, on the issue of betting. Betting and gaming is under the State Department of Interior, as I guess you know. And I want to get to know probably your opinion on the practice. You know, the Committee of Parliament on several occasions has raised concern on the same, taking into account that millions of youth are losing a lot of their money. So you can tell this committee, what is your view in regards to the betting and gaming, if you confirmed and get into that office?
Thank you, Chair. I want to start by responding to Honorable Sigay. Of course, I'll link it up with the question by Honorable Kaunya and move to Honorable Buyu's question. So, SECs being given lists by chiefs, I think the biggest issue here is that our officers are not properly equipped to perform their functions. Now, new administrative units have been put up which have not been operationalized, and the primary reason around this is on budget constraints. And indicatively, there is need for a budget of in excess of 7 billion to be able to operationalize the new administrative units. But this will also go to deal with helping to equip the officers so that then they're able to function. So this is something that as a committee and of course as Parliament, we need to have a conversation, and in the process of prioritization, we resolve it so that then we don't have the challenges or the inconsistencies that the Honourable Member for Teso has mentioned. And also as a former administrator, I think it's only fair that the officers that we expect much from, we must go out of our way to also support them to deliver. In terms of their proper placement, I think there would be a need for conversation, broad-based, and where it's necessary to make a review of the legislation, we do so. I think this goes to also address the issue around facilitation. It boils down to the issues around budgets and the engagement that we need to have with the National Assembly. Was there public participation in the creation of administrative units? From where I sit, I expect that there is a process that has to be followed for any. Not that I would expect, there is a process that has to be followed to set up new administrative units, beginning with the participation by the public or the people in those specific administrative units making a demand for it. And the whole point that informs creation of administrative units is for service delivery to the people. If for whatever reason that is not done, then the question will be, we need to address it so that the public knows that there's a new administrative unit which they need, so that then they're able to get the services. And when those administrative units are set up, then also have them properly equipped or operationalized, so that then the public get the services. And I think as the representatives of the people, this is something that is squarely within the space in terms of guiding the public participation, looking at the existing regulations, and where necessary, making amendments so that then it achieves the intended purpose of ensuring that services reach the common man. On the issue of transfer of chiefs, the Honorable Secretary has a good example, having been in charge of Nairobi, and because from your experience it worked well. So for me, it will be an open conversation within the State Department and across government, including Parliament. If there is a general consensus that that will be the best way to go, then it will then be a question of how to operationalize it. Again, I would not want to speculate that that is what will be happening, but it's something that then we can look into if confirmed into the office. And of course, then the other question was on mobility. I think I agree there is need to probably have a mechanism of dealing with that. I would not say yes, it's going to happen. Again, we need to have that proper consultation and engagement, because definitely what worked in the colonial times and subsequent years might not necessarily work for us today. Honorable Mburu, I think what Kenyans are going to see if I'm confirmed into the office is someone who respects the laws of the land, who will abide by the laws, an impartial principal secretary, and someone who will deliver services, or will help, will push, will coordinate the delivery of services to Wananchi. Honorable Russell is a very good example of U.S. Defense Secretary then, who changed things. I would not want to put myself to be Robert, but when all is said and done, I would want to be judged as someone who made a difference in the running of the State Department, which is at the fulcrum of the entire government infrastructure for the betterment of the people of Kenya. I will work with Parliament, and it's good I have the experience of working with Parliament as the Managing Director of Lake Basin Development Authority, and I'm certain that I have no challenges escalating my level of engagement, so that when summoned to appear or make presentations, I will do that. But also it's incumbent upon the State Department, which if confirmed I'll be heading, that is the report that comes to this committee on what the Parliament has approved for us to undertake. The Honorable Chairman, betting and gaming, I think what I have are general comments around it. Today, as a country, we are operating with laws or regulations that were done in the 60s. That's more than 60 years down the line. And I think it's not fair that we continue to operate that way, because a lot has changed. There's technology. There's a lot of changes in how betting is being undertaken, not just in this country, but globally. And it's important that we quickly fast-track the process of addressing the regulations that govern the entire industry. This would carry along the concerns that the public and of course the leaders like yourselves have, so that we take care of all those ills in terms of even how the marketing and advertising and how the whole infrastructure is governed.
Thank you, Mr. Raymond, and I think as we come to the close of this, maybe before we close, do we have any member with maybe a burning issue? I think we have exhausted. I want to appreciate you. You really attempted to answer all the questions. Of course, this committee will retreat and try to assess, how you answered the questions and able to see your suitability to the office. And now I want just to say, so that it goes on record, that before you came in, the advert was put out to the public as the law requires, and members of the public were asked to maybe do a memorandum, write an affidavit against you as an individual, to challenge your suitability to this office. And for the purposes of record, we haven't received any. The Secretariat just reported that they have not received any affidavit. So that is good. And lastly, maybe before you leave, maybe you would have a word for this committee.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. I think I want to thank the entire membership of the committee, the honorable members, for the opportunity to present myself, to allow you assess my suitability. And I carry away with me a lot of insights, a lot of very positive engagements, and it is something I don't take for granted. And I also want to thank the President for nominating me, because without that I would not be before you. And generally, yes, thank you.
Thank you so much, Raymond Omolo. I think we are done, and we're also grateful for having such a fruitful engagement. So, members, we can have the nominee escorted. Yeah. Best of luck.
Thank you.
So, honorable members, we are going to adjourn, break for lunch. Buyu, we are breaking for lunch, and we say 2:30. We get seated here. We still have 2 nominees to go. Yes. And Kaluma. Yeah. And the Duma. In fact, you need to be here ahead of anyone. There is a conflict between the two. Thank you so much. But you know, to diffuse it to do it permanently. Yes.
Kaluma something. The press.
They had an issue with the press.
So, in house.
Bosi Kongo. Ile iko laptop hapo. Laptop.